very often I look at my life and I look at the way it's actually been going, and I reassess all my memories and try to understand really how things are, why things have gone the way they have, and how they have developed. And I don't have the choice. I do have to try to make sense of what has happened to me. And I think this is a very normal process. And I think as well it is a very important part of the healing process and learning how to move forward. And taking responsibility for one's own action is important and is necessary. But at the same time, it can be extremely challenging when you realize that your entire existence, at least a good part of your existence, has been a lie. My entire life with that man has been nothing more than a series of manufactured incidents, one incident after the other, one very unpleasant situation after the other. And and now I'm finding out that was him creating those very difficult situations. That chaos, it was him creating that. My wolf has done nothing else than constantly put me in very, very strange situations, very, very difficult situations, just to force me to react in a certain way, so that he could have the justification to act even more weirder towards me. All of those things put together would actually force me and the children and our environment, it'll just force all of that into an even more strange situation, and where really I know that me by myself, those things will not be wouldn't have happened, and I would not be with, if I was with somebody that was not like him, a normal person, those things will not happen. There are certain situations, there are certain things, certain steps that I had to certain decisions that I had to make, certain steps that I had to take in order to counteract what he was doing, in order to protect myself, in order to try to make sense of what was happening. Those reactions within me were not normal. They were a reaction based on a completely manufactured crisis that were not even real. And most of those things were just so out there that of course I was forced, deeper into a fog of crazy rationalizing and self-blaming. The most criminal of all of this situation is that he groomed our children to become active investors because that's what I will have to call it, active investors, active participants, as well as spectators of my one-woman comical show, because that's exactly what ended up happening. And the best way I can explain it is by referring you to, maybe, I don't know if any of you have actually seen any of those videos on YouTube where you have a cat chasing a mouse on an iPad. This is me. This is something that, everyone is in on the joke except the cat. Except the cat. The cat is the only entity in that whole situation, not knowing that what they're chasing is not real. And by the time the cat actually realized that something's up with that mouse, something's not quite right, and they refuse to play the game, to continue to play the game, or maybe the cat actually gets completely fed up and bored with it and just not interested anymore. Everybody has had their fun. The cat has already provided an excellent comic relief to their owner and to anybody that's watching that on video. That is me. That's what my life has been about. That's the best way I can explain this double version of me living. It's like I'm a different in a certain frequency, and the rest of my family was in a different frequency, and basically they were up there looking down on me and laughing at me. And this is how I groomed my children to participate and to enjoy creating those horrible situations for me. And this is how my children actually are starting to actually even enjoy baiting me. And this started, now that, I'm realizing and I'm going back and I can remember, or I can put all of those memories, things back to, together. I remember my kids starting doing certain things. I mean, they were like 8 and 10, but most especially after they were 10 years old. And, I concentrate my videos mostly on my husband. But trust me when I say, my kids have done certain things that, looking back, I'm just like, wow. This train has been going on for forever. And I can tell you the level of humiliation and degradation that man has put me through. It's almost like this gift that just, this, what do they call it? This gift that just keep on giving. With every step forward that I make towards finding out the truth, I'm just discovering just how deep the humiliation goes, and just, the degradation as well, how deep really that went on without me even knowing it was going on. I am 44, and I am able to go back into my past. I am able to go back into the way my family raised me and the mistakes that my own family made. Don't bring back from deep within me those horrendous, double meaning memories full of spite, full of neglect, or full of something that I didn't understand at the time that was very detrimental to me, and now I understand it. There's none of that. There is none of that. Yes, I have identified a psychopath in my family, and yes, I have identified as well a narcissist, a very strong narcissist, person with a narcissistic trait in my family. But no, I was not wounded. I am completely capable to go back, reassess, and see exactly what went on in my family. I understand enough, and I have enough now knowledge to be able to go back and see things for what they were. I don't have any wounds. I understood that my family raised me in the best way they could with the knowledge they had, and it was in accordance of the time that I was living in and the environment as well I was living in. The way I lived was no different than my neighbors. The way I lived wasn't that much different from my own cousins. The way I lived was nowhere different from the people in my neighborhood. Well, the way I ended up having to raise my kids is just not normal. I have never experienced anything like that. And no, my family did not prepare me for this kind of assault, this kind of psychological assault, because they themselves were not aware of it. They, just like me, did not. My aunt is a psychopath. I have actually now identified her as such. And I can tell you that my grandmother died not knowing, not understanding. We all knew there was something that was a little bit odd about her, and more than odd, but we just didn't know that. None of us, and this is me, only me now because of what I'm going through, putting my fingers on it. But none of us understood that. And most of the time you come across those people come into your life, or they're already part of your life. You don't always suspect them, and that is the truth. And that doesn't mean because you were not prepared to be suspicious of everybody and keep everybody at arm's length, or that, that as soon as somebody did something wrong, then you jump down their throats and have that kind of mentality where your thoughts are always gone into something very, very bad. It's not because I was raised that way that means that there is something wrong with completely wrong with the way I was raised, and that has nothing to do with me being in denial either. Absolutely not. Because at the end of the day, it is very important for me to acknowledge and to understand and to uncover as much as I possibly can, not only about myself, but about the way I behave and the way I respond to things, and so I can be better prepared moving forward, because that's for sure I don't want to have to experience this ever again in my life. This is absolutely horrendous. The fact and the matter remains that I had no idea people like that existed. Just like I am sure most people, when you have somebody that is kind to you and that is willing to help you and is being generous, and somebody who's very kind and humble comes to you, I mean, maybe some people will just go and say, oh, please stay away from me. But no, I wasn't raised like that. I was raised to be very careful with people who come with their guns blazing, making an awful lot of noises, and being apparent in what they're doing. But no, I wasn't so much raised to actually be even more suspicious of people who come at you with being extremely nice. No, that didn't occur to me. And I don't think that makes me either in denial or of what may have happened in my past. From what I've actually learned, and what makes the situation that I am in extremely very difficult, is that I can't even confront him. I can't even confront my wolf with my findings, because this is somebody who feels absolutely no shame and no regret, like none. And there's something that he did this past summer, and I'm still trying to gather, my thoughts around this, and how to word all of that, and how to express it, to actually make a video sometime soon. This is something that he did that I know that He's the kind of person, if I was to confront him, he is actually more likely to escalate things to scare me rather than back down. And I've seen him do that. I have seen him do that. This is the kind of person that I am dealing with. This is not a normal situation, and this is not an easy situation. And this is why I'm actually finding myself in this situation, because taking responsibility for my action is part of what I've always done. It comes naturally to me. And I'll even go as far as explaining as well as that the other frustration, the other frustrating side of this equation of, if I tell him, if I confront him, he will actually escalate things and try to scare me. Well, the other side of this equation is that I also know that, showing him anger or confronting him or exposing what I know will also serve to increase the mental pleasure he has already attached to every memory of my pain and all of the humiliations that he has actually forced me to experience. And that is the truth. This is what I am dealing with. And I can tell you that keeping my mouth shut is literally the only way that I have to hold on to my own dignity. And this brings me absolutely no relief at all. For me, discovering the deception is one thing. But the difficult part is to figure out whether the admission is used to help relieve the pressure of holding on to so many secrets, or whether they use narc speak as a way of getting their mental masturbation on. Or maybe narc speak is just a strategically placed kind of time bomb that the narcissist or the psychopath leaves laying around like small breadcrumbs for the victim to eventually find and follow until it all leads to a painful truth that is going to explode their mind, devastate their character, which will either break their spirit or corrupt their goody-goody souls. Because when the victim really comes to that place of devastation, a lot of people will seek revenge. And doing that will indicate a very significant departure from a certain level of integrity and good behavior, and so on, and so on. And even if the victim just want to defend themselves, the only way to effectively do that is to throw yourself actually in the ring, and so you can actually fight against the pig. You see, the mud and the pig, and because that's a level you have to bring yourself down to in order to face them and either challenge them or either fight them or even try to defeat them. The victim doesn't have the choice, and it looks very much that like this is what they want. They want the victim to fight back. They want the victim to get angry, to get mad, and they want the victim to get off that pedestal. They don't want you to remain in whatever position. They want you broken. They want you completely out of your common sense, and they want you enraged, they want you to engage them. But and from my experience, I can testify that it doesn't feel natural and it doesn't feel good, because like me, I am now, I'm having to snoop. I'm having to, pay extreme attention to what's going on around me so I can jump in and start manipulate situations so that just in order to help myself. And this is a kind of behavior that is just doesn't come normal to me, and it makes me feel horrible, and it's almost like a moral dilemma that I have to deal with, and I do feel horrible, and I do feel, I feel tainted, like he has tainted me by forcing me to defend myself, by forcing me to take certain steps. I am having to do things that I would never consider before, and I do mean, it is tough. Another thing I have come to observe from the way my wolf has gone after me, and this is time and time and time and again, is that he never seemed to come at me in a straightforward manner. He never attacks me, full on one-on-one. There is always a situation or two removed. There is always people in front. Before it was his, he was doing things. He was getting at me through his family, and then he started to manipulate situations that would put his friends or his colleagues in front of me, and then it became the children. It's a case of he's always one or two steps removed from what's happening, and this is one of the reasons that took me quite a while to, well, no, I actually did kind of realize that, anyway. And the way I'm understanding it now is that I think he's more comfortable with waiting for me to discover and understand and, fully grasp what he has done, and that he's the one that's actually behind all of this. This is a type of power play that is very difficult for me. It's not easy for me to explain. I can see it quite clearly, obviously, in my head, but I'm not quite sure yet how to explain that. But maybe one day I can. And in the meantime, I hope that most of you will understand what I'm actually trying to say here. So when I put all those tidbits of information together, I can't help but feel inclined to think that narc speak is probably based on those different reasons, or a combination of all of them. Either way, this is still most definitely a very unpleasant journey to Cuckoo Town, the crazy town. This is a place where people like my husband, they won't hesitate to steal something they don't need from their victim or from anybody, just so that they can maintain a feeling of superiority and a feeling of control. I'll give you even some example. I think, quite recently as well, I found, when I was actually getting rid of an awful lot of old things, I came across different papers. I came across books and from my husband's college days, and even the early years when he actually started to work, because the dates were on all of them. I actually found that he with his own handwriting, he had actually written book stolen from such and such person by, and he'll put his own name. I found that, I think I found 3 examples of that. And just like I said, this is the kind of people they are. I mean, who does that? And why would he? And I'm not like him, so there's only so much speculation I can do, because this way of thinking is just not very. It's extremely unusual. And I'll even give you another example of me finding out that my own husband, this man that is almost 50, he's a grown-ass person, and he has preferred to steal things from me rather than ask me. I mean, he preferred to steal rather than ask or even demand if he needed them. I mean, it is within his right to just go and say, I need such and such. Can you provide me with this? Or I know you have that, and give it to me. Or I need that. I am not a difficult person. And he has done this over and over again, and this is just complete and utter crazy behavior. And the worst thing about that is that discovering that kind of crazy stuff truly made me feel insecure and made me feel like maybe there is something wrong with me. Maybe I'm too hard, maybe I'm too harsh, maybe I am this person that he's making me out to be. And this is the same thing as well he's used to get the children to see me in a different way by acting like this, doing things behind my back, either to please the children or to take things from me. And the kids would see that, and they will be convinced that their father, their wonderful dad, this man, this strong man that is like 6'2" and over 200 pounds, can only behave like that if he's terrified of me or there is something wrong with me. How can the children not see behavior like that and not rationalize it in a way that is extremely disadvantageous to me? I can totally understand where they're coming from, because even myself, I'm asking myself when I discover those stuff that maybe there's something wrong with me after all. Maybe I am that bad person, and this really, really messes with your own mind. You may know who you are, you may know what you stand for, but it's very hard not to question yourself when these those very, very small incidents are done to you over and over and over again. But to go back to the additional incidents that have led me to think very differently about my whole sexual preferences, I can tell you this, looking back, from what I remember, my wolf has always, since I've been with him, gotten he has always gotten a rather adoring type of attention from his male colleagues, and as well as his childhood friends. And there's even one person who commented on my previous video of having experienced something very, very similar with their own ex-husband too. So it makes me feel a little bit better, because I did see it. It was very obvious that my husband is always surrounded by male. And also because of the job is actually the kind of job he's doing, it's very male orientated, and the way those guys just look at him, and And with everything that I've come to understand about the pathology, this again is leaving me feeling a little bit confused. It's adding on an extra layer of confusion, because I can't figure out which part of this situation has to do with this pathology and which part of this situation has to do with purely his, what I now I'm 100% sure has to do with his homosexuality. And this is quite important for me, because I can see myself becoming very, very extremely suspicious of every self-declared, of every straight man who will seem to command the respect of their friends or of their colleagues. I I'm just going to be a terror once I leave this wolf. I am going to be what they call damaged good. There's just no way I'll be able to get myself out of, this. It's changing me. I don't know how I will be able to trust people, how I'll be able to get on with people. I can see myself becoming even more recluse than I already am, because what he has done to me and what I'm discovering every single time is just too much. Okay, let me tell you about a very strange incident which happened almost 7 or 8 years ago. And at the time, my wolf was working out of state, so he was commuting back and forth. He was coming back to see us every weekend, like a very dutiful husband. And at the time I felt horrible for him, because the drive was quite long, and I remember that I even bought him a series of audiobooks to help him alleviate the tedium of this long drive, and which, by the way, he never even acknowledged, or even didn't even say thank you to me for that. It's like I didn't even do anything. And even though I was feeling bad for him, I was trying very hard to force myself not to show too much sympathy towards him, because I really didn't want him to go. I know that I begged him not to take that promotion, and that was because the children missed him so much. The children, it's not me. The children really, really, really missed him, and they needed him. And yes, I could have done with the extra help at the time as well. And this was a very important stage in their development. So, I really wanted him to stay with us, and and I was quite confident when I was asking him to not accept that promotion. I was quite confident that the opportunity for another promotion will come again. I was sure of that, and time has actually proven me right. He has done he has done well since then. So all I could do at the time was, I remember that I begged him. I literally went on my knees and I just begged him to make us a priority. For once in those children's lives, and for the children's sake, I begged him to give us, even if it was just 2 years, 3 years at 3 years max. But I was happy. I would have been happy if he just gave me 2 years, and and that was before the children became teenager. Because by the time they became teenagers, I knew they will no longer care, so it will not be an issue. They'll have things to do by themselves, so it will not be an issue. So I really needed him to tag along and stay with us. And of course, he royally ignored me. And when he did that, I can't even describe just how painful this rejection felt to me. I was truly devastated. It's hard for me to count the number of times I felt his neglect of our children very much like a blow in this area within me, my solar plexus. Even as I am telling you, even as I am talking about this, despite all those years, I can still feel the pain in this area. I have fought so hard on the behalf of those children within this marriage. The pain that those children used to feel, they themselves, the children, they've completely forgotten all about it. They don't even remember it. But that pain still remains within me, is still in me. And it doesn't go away, I tried so hard to get their father to be there for them. And now this pain is actually amplified because the children themselves are now accusing me of all sorts of things. Things that they have said, they have said things that just made me realize that while I was doing my best for them, both the children, they were busy resenting me and holding me secretly responsible for everything. This kind of double reality is a nasty theme that is repeating itself over and over and over everywhere I look around in my life. It's like I am functioning on a different frequency from the rest of my family. For example, I can tell you that it's obvious that while I was busy being loving to my husband, that man was busy plotting against me. While I was trying very hard to get our children to be understanding and forgiving of their dad because they were sad, and I had to, try to make them feel better and not be resentful of their father. While I was doing that in favor of my, to benefit all of us really, and making him look good, my wolf was busy making sure that the children saw me as a witch, saw me as a tyrant, saw me in all of those crazy ways that I had no idea about. And which means that while I was trying my best to soothe my kids' pain and wiping the tears that were falling off their faces, I am now finding out that those tears, those actual tears, were tears of anger and frustration that was actually aimed at me. Because by then they had started blaming me for their father's lack of interest in their lives. And now that they are grown, they are ferociously protecting their father from me, and they're lashing out at me. This is a completely upside down world I am living in. This is pure crazy town. And please trust me when I say that I understand. I understand that my children are victims just like me. I have learned enough to know that their father doesn't even care about them. and that he's just using them in every way he can for his own benefit, whether it is to punish me, whether it's to supply himself with his, with his emotional cravings or whatever that is. I know that those kids are being used, and which means that they are just as victimized as I am. But you have to understand that I am human too, and I have feelings. And with all that I am going through, I need a safe place for me to express my feelings freely, and most certainly not made to feel worse or with comments like I have to take responsibilities for my own action, or for I have done nothing but take responsibility for my actions. And this is actually the reason why I am in this situation, because I was busy taking responsibility for my action rather than nag and force somebody else to change. And because I believed that as a wife, you are not in control, you are not supposed to try to control somebody else. We are all different people, and we have to give each other space to grow and mature, because we are not all on the same level. And it's not that I am on a higher level, but it's just a case of when it comes to responsibility, not everybody rise up to the challenge in the same way. And for me, I certainly just thought that this is part of when you love somebody. You don't squeeze them to death. You give them space. You give them time to understand things. You give them time to mature. Even with the children, it's the same process, and I don't believe either that my past has wounded me. There is no past. Most everybody has had some kind of conflict at some point within their own family. There are things that did happen, and I will talk about them, but they did not wound me. I was loved and cared for properly. I was blind to a certain extent to a few things that happened, because it was adult stuff, I guess, and although I absorbed some of those things, I don't recognize coming out of my childhood as a wounded person. I felt loved and I felt cared for. Both my parents did the best that they could with the knowledge that they had at the time, and it was in proportion as well with not only the place where I come from, and it was in proportion as well with the time, the current time. Nobody has a perfect life. Very few people have a perfect life or perfect childhood. And I am able to recognize some of the things that could have gone differently. But my entire family did what they could with what they had and the knowledge they had at the time. And this is not me covering up for them, not at all. My grandmother had the most effect on me, and she wasn't somebody who made a habit of either covering things for me or lying to me or misleading me. She was somebody that was a straight shooter, and she explained an awful lot of things to me. And most of what she explained to me make an awful lot of sense to me now. And at the time they didn't, and they're very useful to me now. But this is what she believed, and those are the things that she, that as well, herself being a product of her time. So I'm not covering up, and I'm not being in complete denial here. I had a very normal, very good childhood. And if it was completely different, if I had a completely crazy childhood where, things were completely crazy, I would talk about it. I wouldn't lie about it. You have to understand that an awful lot of us come into this situation through different portals, and even those people who actually end up feeding on us and doing all those horrible things to us, they come at us through, under different circumstances, and there is a variation as well to how they approach some of us. And even though the end result is always the same, the beginning, to all of our stories, there is a variation, and you should not dismiss that. And this is why I try my very best to be as forthcoming as I possibly can and give as many details as I can remember, and not hide, because although I don't give advice really, but I certainly want my contribution to this community. I want my contribution to be through explaining and giving as many details of how I got myself in this situation, how I didn't, how I missed the clues, and why I missed the clues, and why those things didn't make sense to me, and how what was my thought process at the time. This is how I want to contribute. I have no anger towards my family of origin. It was not a perfect family, but I got what I needed to grow up, and I wasn't lacking. And when my father did not do what he was supposed to do, other people stepped in. When those people, eventually moved on, other people stepped in. And I was cared for, and I was loved. And this you have to understand, and this you have to believe, and not dismiss.